A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Alright, so today's prompt from Daniel is about the technical sophistication of AI models in China and Asia compared to the West, and why some of them are becoming popular over here, while others are basically invisible. It's a good one.
It really is. And by the way, today's episode is powered by Xiaomi MiMo V2 Pro. So, this topic, it feels like we're watching two completely different movies about the same technology. In the West, it's all about the big names, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. But if you look at the download charts or talk to developers who care about cost and efficiency, you're seeing models like DeepSeek and MiMo climb right to the top.
Right. And Daniel's question gets at this weird disconnect. There are apparently models in China that are doing serious work, integrated into daily life, and some of them even speak English, but they don't have a single web page in our language. It's like a whole parallel universe of AI that we're just starting to get glimpses of.
Let's define the scope here. We're talking about the technical architecture, the daily integration into apps and services, and the ecosystem. The core question is why the optimization goals seem so different, and what that means for who ends up using what.
So, kick us off. When we say technical sophistication, what are we actually comparing? Because I think a lot of people hear Chinese model and assume it's just a cheaper, less capable copy. But that's not what the data shows, is it?
Not at all. That's the first major misconception to toss out. The sophistication isn't about raw capability on a benchmark chart, though they're often neck and neck there. It's about the engineering priorities. Western models, especially the frontier ones from OpenAI and Google, have been on this scaling trajectory. Bigger models, more parameters, more compute. The assumption was that scale equals intelligence.
The brute force approach.
Wait, no, I'm not allowed to say that. Let me rephrase. The brute force approach. But in China, and this is partly due to hardware constraints because of export controls on advanced GPUs, the focus shifted early to efficiency. How do you get GPT-4 level performance with a fraction of the compute cost? That's the holy grail they've been chasing.
And that's where you get architectures like mixture of experts.
Precisely, dang, I did it again. That's where mixture of experts comes in. Take DeepSeek's R1 model. It has 601 billion total parameters, but for any given token it generates, it only activates about 37 billion of them. It's like having a huge team of specialists, but for each question you only call in the 3 or 4 people who actually know about that topic. You get the collective knowledge of the big team without the massive energy bill of having everyone in the room for every conversation.
So the intelligence is modular. That's a fundamentally different design philosophy than just making a single giant neural network fatter. But how does that work in practice? If I'm a developer, what do I actually see in the API response?
Great follow-up. You see speed and cost. Let's put some numbers on it. For a standard, long-form summarization task, say, condensing a 10,000-word report, the latency for a model like DeepSeek R1 can be 30 to 40% lower than a comparably sized dense model precisely because it's not firing up every single parameter. And the cost per million tokens can be half or even a third. Xiaomi's MiMo V2 Pro, which came out in January, uses a 128K context window with something called dynamic sparse attention. The reports claim it achieves about 40% lower inference cost than GPT-4 Turbo for comparable tasks. That's not a trivial difference. If you're a developer building an app that needs to make millions of API calls, that cost saving is your entire business model. It's the difference between a profitable service and one that bleeds money.
That explains the popularity with Western developers. They're not necessarily choosing Mimo over GPT-4 because it's smarter in a philosophical sense. They're choosing it because it's smart enough and radically cheaper. It's a pragmatic calculation.
And often faster for specific tasks. But there's another layer here, tokenization. This gets a bit technical, but it's crucial.
Go for it. Walk us through it.
Every language model breaks text down into chunks called tokens. Think of them as the model's basic units of meaning. Most Western models were trained predominantly on English corpora. Their tokenizer is optimized for English words and subwords. For example, the word unhappiness might be broken into han, happy, ness. But Chinese and many Asian languages work differently. They're character-based, with a huge vocabulary of unique characters. A pure English optimized tokenizer is wildly inefficient for processing Chinese. It takes way more tokens to represent the same amount of information.
So a model trying to read a Chinese web page would be spending most of its compute just decoding the language itself, not understanding the meaning. It's like trying to read a novel where every other word is a code you have to decipher first.
It's a constant translation tax. Many leading Chinese models like those from Alibaba's Quinn team or DeepSeek use hybrid tokenizers. They're trained on massive multilingual datasets from the ground up. Their token vocabulary is designed to efficiently handle Chinese characters, English words, and code syntax all together. So not only do they process their native language more efficiently, they often handle multilingual tasks with less overhead. The model isn't translating from Chinese to an internal English representation. It's thinking in a more language-agnostic space.
That's a huge advantage for global adoption that gets completely overlooked. We see Chinese model and think it's only for Chinese. But if its foundational tokenization is better at handling multiple languages, it could actually be better for a multilingual application than a model born and raised on English. Do we have any concrete examples of that?
We do. There was a fascinating case study shared on a developer forum. A team in Singapore was building a customer service bot for a travel agency that served tourists from mainland China, Taiwan, and the West. They needed the bot to understand and respond accurately in simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, and English. They tested a leading Western model and a leading Chinese model. For the same conversation, the Western model used roughly 15% more tokens to process the Chinese queries, leading to higher cost and slightly higher latency. The Chinese model, because of its tokenizer, handled the language switches more seamlessly. The developer said it felt like the Chinese model had a smoother gear shift between languages.
That's a perfect illustration. It's not just about knowing the words, it's about the fundamental efficiency of how the model ingests them. It's like discovering a world-class chef who only has a menu in Mandarin. But if you manage to order, the food is incredible and half the price.
That's actually a pretty good analogy. I'll allow it.
Thanks. So, we've got the architecture and the tokenization. Now, where does agentic AI fit into this? Because Daniel specifically mentioned it. He said they're integrated into daily life.
This is where the daily integration part becomes so stark. In the West, our interaction with AI is still largely app-based. I open ChatGPT, or I use Copilot in my IDE, or I talk to Alexa. It's a destination. It's a discrete event. In China, and this is spreading to other parts of Asia, the AI is a layer woven into existing super apps.
WeChat being the prime example.
WeChat is the operating system for daily life in China. It's messaging, payments, social media, government services, everything. And AI assistants are embedded directly into those flows. You're not switching to a separate AI app to ask a question. You're in your payment history, and you can ask the AI, how much did I spend on groceries last month compared to this month? And it has the full context because it's integrated with the payment backend. Or you're in a group chat planning a trip, and you can to the assistant and say, find 3 hotels in Shanghai for these dates under 500 yuan with good reviews for families. It pulls from booking services, checks reviews, and presents options right there in the chat.
So the agent has persistent, authorized access to your data across services with your permission. That's a level of integration that would make a Western privacy advocate break out in hives. How do people there think about that trade-off?
It's a different social contract for sure. The convenience is so profound that it's become normalized. The AI isn't a creepy outsider, it's a utility like electricity. Alipay's AI assistant reportedly processes over 500 million queries a day in both Chinese and English. It's not just answering trivia, it's helping people manage finances, dispute transactions, find coupons, all within the same interface they use to pay for their lunch. The AI isn't a novelty, it's plumbing. And when something is plumbing, reliability and cost are everything.
And that changes the nature of the tasks. You said it's not write me an email. What's a typical use case? Give me a minute in the life scenario.
Okay, let's say you're in a taxi to the airport. You open WeChat. Your flight details are already in your calendar, which is synced. You message the AI, my flight is delayed 2 hours. Can you check my hotel booking and see if I can push the check-in time? Also, cancel my dinner reservation for 7 p.m. and book a new one for 9 p.m. near the hotel. And send a message to my wife's group chat letting them know I'll be late. The agent parses that, interfaces with the hotel system, the restaurant's booking platform, and your messaging app, executing a chain of actions. It's context-based continuation. The agent's job is to seamlessly carry context from one part of your digital life to another to complete tasks.
That sounds incredibly useful and incredibly invasive, but it also explains why the models are built the way they are. If your primary job is to be an efficient, low-cost agent inside a high-volume app handling millions of transactions, you don't need to be the most creative poet. You need to be fast, cheap, reliable, and excellent at structured data extraction and action chaining. You need to be a brilliant logistician, not a philosopher.
You've hit the nail on the head. The optimization target is different. Western frontier models are often optimized for breadth, creativity, and tackling novel, unstructured problems, what you might call intelligence. Many leading Asian models are optimized for depth, efficiency, and reliability within structured, high-volume ecosystems. It's not that one is better, it's that they're built for different primary jobs. It's the difference between a research scientist and a world-class project manager. Both are brilliant, but their skills are honed for different outcomes.
So why the obscurity? Why don't we hear about, say, Ernie Bot from Baidu, or other big Chinese models, in the same breath as Claude or Gemini?
Several reasons. First, the domestic market is colossal. Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they have hundreds of millions of users to serve. The incentive to spend huge resources on English language marketing or building a slick Western-facing interface is low when your core market is so vast. Why chase a smaller, more competitive, and more legally complex market abroad when you have a captive audience at home? Second, there's the regulatory and data sovereignty piece. Operating a global service means navigating 100 different legal regimes around data privacy, content moderation, and security. It's a massive headache. It's easier to dominate at home. Third, and this is subtle, the developer ecosystem. The West has a very established API economy and open source culture centered around GitHub, PyPI, NPM. Chinese models are often released on platforms like Hugging Face, but the surrounding tooling, the tutorials, the community support is still catching up in English.
It's a discoverability problem. The model might be on Hugging Face, but if the documentation is in Chinese, the example code uses libraries unfamiliar to a Western developer, and there's no English language blog explaining the architecture, it might as well be invisible. You can't find what you're not looking for, and you won't load for what you don't know exists.
That's changing though. The success of DeepSeek and Mimo is forcing the issue. When your model tops the trending charts on Hugging Face, you get community-driven translations, tutorials, and wrappers. The quality of the technology is pulling the ecosystem along with it. It's a grassroots, bottom-up form of marketing.
So let's talk about prevalence. How does daily AI use in, say, Beijing compared to New York or London? Paint me a picture.
It's more seamless and, in a way, more mundane in China. It's not an event. You don't go to the AI, you just do your thing, and the AI is part of the fabric. In the West, we're still in the conscious adoption phase. I choose to open an app. I choose to enable a copilot. The integration is spotty. My email AI doesn't talk to my calendar. AI, which doesn't talk to my shopping AI. In Asia, especially within those walled garden super apps, the integration is vertical and deep. The AI has a unified view of your intent across services.
It's the difference between having a bunch of smart appliances in your house that all have different remotes versus having a single integrated smart home system where everything just works together because it was designed that way from the start.
That's a fair comparison. And that vertical integration creates a flywheel. More users in the app generate more data, which improves the AI for that specific context, which makes the app more useful, which attracts more users. It's a powerful loop that's hard for a standalone AI chatbot to compete with. The chatbot is a tool. The integrated agent is an environment.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners, especially the developers and tech-curious people in the audience? What should they do with this information? It's fascinating, but what's the action item?
I think there are two actionable insights. First, if you're building an application where cost and multilingual efficiency are critical, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least experiment with the APIs from DeepSeek, Quinn, or Mimo. The performance per dollar can be staggering. You might use a Western model for the creative, generative parts of your app brainstorming marketing copy, generating imaginative content, and a Chinese model for the high-volume, structured data processing parts, summarizing support tickets, extracting entities from documents, powering a cheap and fast chatbot for common queries. A hybrid approach.
Like using a sports car for the fun weekend drive and an efficient electric sedan for the daily commute.
Oh, come on. Yes, like that. You're using the right tool for the right job. Second, watch the integration patterns. The Western model of one app to rule them all might not be the end state. The future might be AI as a personalized layer that follows you across different services, with your permission. That requires a different kind of architecture, one that some Asian models are already built for. It's about building for interoperability and context, passing from the ground up.
It also raises huge questions about data portability and privacy that we haven't even begun to solve in the West. If my AI agent knows everything about me across WeChat, Alipay, and JD.com, who owns that composite profile? Can I take it with me if I switch apps? These are the next generation policy debates we need to have.
Massive questions. But from a pure technology standpoint, the monopoly on advanced AI is over. The sophistication is global, even if the marketing isn't. The models are in a dead heat on performance, but they're running on different tracks, optimized for different races. It's a diversification of the technological gene pool, and that's usually where resilience and innovation come from.
It's not about East versus West being better. It's about a diversification of approaches. And that's ultimately good for everyone. More choice, more innovation, more pressure to get the cost down and the utility up. It breaks any potential complacency.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I know. That's why you keep me around.
Thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flemingtop. Big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. This has been My Weird Prompts. If you're enjoying the show, a quick review on your podcast app helps us reach new listeners.
We'll see you next time. This episode was produced using Xiaomi Mimo V2 Pro. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts, that's the close from sloth.